Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India Habitat Center and Professor Benoy K. Behl. Today's talk is the 29th in his monthly series, Glimpses of Culture. As a labor of love, Professor Behl has traveled to all corners of this vast subcontinent, documenting even remote temples and sites, not just once, but several times. The result is a breathtaking documentation of culture which provides a new perspective to Indian and Asian art and culture. This perspective has made it possible for him to trace the roots and the development of ancient and medieval art and to bring them before us in a clear continuity. This is perhaps Professor Behl's greatest contribution to the understanding of the development of Indian art. Last month, he has taken us to the earliest roots in the Indus Valley and the Maurya periods. Today, he takes us to the fundamentals of this philosophic art, which were formulated by the 2nd century BCE. In subsequent months, he will trace for us the development of Indian art over the centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, Benoy K. Behl speaks to us today on Beyond the Illusory World. Thank you for your attention, and over to Professor Behl.
Thank you very much, Sujata Chatterji. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last month, we had gone to the earliest roots of Indian art in the Indus Valley civilization. There we had seen a remarkable culture, the only in the world where archaeologists have not been able to unearth any evidence of an army or police. Most remarkable. We had also seen that the Chitra Sutra, the oldest known treatise on art making, says that art is the greatest treasure of mankind, far more important than gold or jewels. We had also seen that, according to the Chitra Sutra, and in practice too, this art, which was meant to be an aid on the philosophic path, this art did not show us ephemeral personalities. Individuals who came upon the stage of life for a brief moment and were then gone were not considered important enough for something as important as art. Here it was the eternal themes which were concentrated upon. Now, from the Maurya period, we move on to the Shunga period in the 2nd century BCE. And here we see the development of the fundamentals of Indian art, fundamentals which were to last forever. In fact, the basic principles which are set out in Indian art in this period, in the 2nd century BCE, are still followed pretty exactly, even in faraway places as the Buddhist temples of Japan. And since these earliest periods, Indian art takes on its great and everlasting challenges. You see, in the Indic philosophic vision, the world that we see around us, the material world that we relate to around us, is actually an illusion brought to us, perceived by us because of the limitations of our senses and sensibilities. The purpose of art, which aids us on this philosophic path, is to lift the veils of illusion and to take us to the truth beyond, the truth which is meant to be formless, nirgun, without qualities, arupa, without form. And that is the purpose set out from the earliest times of Indian art. To move from the multiplicity of the forms of the world that we see around us, from all these forms, recognize them to be reflections only of that which is finally formless, and to move to meditate upon that formless. And these are the fundamentals which are set out in this early period and continue till today. I take pleasure in sharing with you this part of the journey. Sushant, it would be kind of you to please run the film. Thank you very much.
One of the oldest known sacred forms in India is the Stupa. It is seen in Buddhist and Jaina monuments from early times. Recent excavations near Nalanda have also unearthed a large mud stupa of the 8th to the 10th century BC. In 483 BC, Gautama Buddha attained parinirvana, the final escape from the illusions of the material world. His followers divided his mortal relics and enshrined them in the heart of mud stupas which were made. Thus began a tradition which spread to many countries and continues till today. Later stupas house the remains of other great teachers, their personal belongings, and also Buddhist texts. In the 3rd century BC, Emperor Ashoka is believed to have retrieved the Buddha's holy relics and enshrined them again in stupas which he constructed across his kingdom. The rule of the Mauryas was followed by that of the Shunga dynasty in the 2nd and 1st centuries BC. The Shungas worshipped Brahmanical deities and were benevolent to the Buddhist Sangha. The earliest body of Buddhist art, with images of the life of the Buddha and the Jataka stories, was made under their rule. Around 100 BC, a great stupa was made at Barhut in the eastern part of present-day Madhya Pradesh. Between the sacred and unadorned form of the stupas and the mundane world beyond were made Vedikas or railings and Toranas or gateways. The railings create a path for the devotee to walk around the revered stupa. Forms of the world around us were made on the railings and gateways. Their representations help us to appreciate all forms of life in their true perspective, to see them as reflections of the formless, eternal truth towards which we must proceed. Beyond the railings and gateways is the stupa, to point out the truth towards which we must strive, leaving behind the attractions and attachments to the world. The 9-foot-high Vedika and the Torana are made in imitation of the wooden architecture of that time. This is the earliest stupa railing to have survived. Unlike the imperial art of the Mauryas, inscriptions here show that the relief and figures were donated by lay people, monks and nuns. Images of yakshas and yakshis come to us from times immemorial. These embody the spirit of nature and serve to remind us of the divinity which underlies all that is around us. They represent the protection of nature and its great fertility, which ensures the continuance of life. On the left of the north gateway of the Vedika is made the Yaksha Kubera, who symbolizes abundance. On the same pillar is made the Yakshi Chandra. She holds a branch of the Ashoka tree above her. The tree longs for the touch of a beautiful woman, to then burst into blossom. She entwines herself like a creeper around the trunk of the tree. The deity of prosperity and abundance, Lakshmi, is also made on the Vedika. This is the earliest image of the deity, who is later seen in the stupas of Sanchi and in other Buddhist art. Lakshmi is also a popular deity in other Indic traditions. The whole of existence is seen as deeply connected. All that is around us is a part of the greater One. Therefore, the artists see no problem in joining different forms of plant, animal, or human life in a fully harmonious depiction. As the worshipper goes around the stupa, stories made on the railings remind him of the virtuous qualities of the Buddha. Jatakas, or tales of the previous lives of the Buddha, are used to exemplify the rules of conduct in everyday life. We are constantly aware of the cosmopolitan world in India at that time. A pillar of the Vedika has a depiction of a Greek warrior. On another railing, we see a Nagaraja, a serpent king. He is in human form, but has a serpent's hood. Like yakshas and yakshis, Naga deities serve to keep us conscious of the power, the protection, and the fertility of nature. Serpents appear in Indic art from the Indus Valley times till today. Many of the roundels in the Vedika have lotus medallions. Human figures are also made within these. In Indic thought, the lotus is a symbol of purity and of rising above the mundane, of transcendence. The Vedika relief depict many scenes from the life of the Buddha and from his previous lives. The Buddha is himself never depicted in this early Buddhist art. Instead, there are symbols which indicate his presence. One of the remarkable aspects of early Indian art is that the focus was not on individuals, and there were no portraits, even of kings. In fact, in the Chitra Sutra of the Vishnu Dharmottara, it is the eternal themes and not personalities which are the befitting subject of art. The focus in the art of the early stupas is on the ethical message. It is this ethical message which is contained in the Jataka stories made on the Vedika of the stupa. One of the marvelous aspects of the art of this period is that sublime character, rare even in humans, is presented in the sculpted animals of the Jataka stories. This is a view of the world which makes no distinction between the life of man and that of the animals and even plants and trees. The city of Vidisha was on the trade route which connected the plains of the Ganga to the western coast. It was also a great marketplace at the centre of the vast and fertile plains of central India. At Sanchi, on a low hill close to Vidisha, are the finest surviving early Buddhist stupas. Halfway up the hill is a stupa which contains the remains of prominent Buddhist teachers of the Maurya period. The Vedika made around the stupa dates to around 100 BC. The Vedika has medallions and half medallions with reliefs. Corner pillars at the entrances are fully carved. The deity of prosperity and abundance, Lakshmi, is here being lustrated by elephants who pour water over her. The relief is shallow and the style is similar to that of Barhut. The greatest surviving Buddhist stupa of the BC period is on top of the hill at Sanchi. It is likely that it would have enshrined the relics of the Buddha. The stupa was originally made in the 3rd century BC. There is an Ashokan pillar at the southern entrance of the stupa. In the middle of the 2nd century BC, the stupa was doubled in size, and its older wooden railings were replaced with massive stone ones. By the end of the 1st century BC, the Satavahanas, kings of the Deccan region, extended their rule to central India. They worshipped Brahmanical deities. However, major stone renovations here during their time made this stupa one of the most significant of all Buddhist monuments. 4 gloriously carved stone toranas, 34 feet high, were made. They were completed in the 1st century AD. The traditions of art established in the time of the Shungas achieved greater sophistication in these magnificent toranas. "631 inscriptions on the toranas tell us that the carvings were the donations of the people of Vidisha. The art was created for gardeners, merchants, bankers, fishermen, housewives, householders, nuns and monks. Almost half the donations were from women." The massive Vedikas are plain and without carvings. The sculpted toranas have 2 upright pillars, which support 3 horizontal bars or architraves. The west gateway has dwarves who support the finely carved bars of the torana. The dwarves, or gunners, are made with rolls of fat and vast bellies which bulge over their dhotis. They have individualized facial expressions. Gunners continue as a favorite theme of the Indian artist in the centuries to come. They deepen the sense of the reality presented in art, where the humorous and the sublime coexist, reminding us that everything has its place in existence. The veneration of nature's fertility and abundance, as seen at Barhut, continues here. 24 auspicious women are made as bracket figures on the gateways. On the east torana is a beautifully made yakshi who holds the branch of a mango tree above her. The notion of the creative vitality of nature and its fruitfulness is convincingly portrayed here. As at Barhut, we pass guardian figures or dwarapalas at the entrances. One figure is in Indic garb, a dhoti and turban. Another wears Greek garments and carries a foreign type of shield and spear. The reliefs on the Toranas bring us the Jatakas of the Buddha's previous lives, as well as events from the life of Gautama Buddha. The setting of the stories richly reflects the lives of the towns and villages at the time when the art was created. The Sanchi reliefs are the most important visual record of the architecture and lifestyles of the period. The focus is still not on the personality of Gautama Buddha. Buddhahood is still represented by symbols. The wheel represents the first teaching of the Buddhist Dharma. The Bodhi tree represents enlightenment, while footprints and an umbrella over a vacant space proclaim the presence of an enlightened one. The Toranas of the Stupa at Sanchi present a view of the overflowing activity of life. Whereas the figures at Barhut were single ones, those here are in large groups. They are in a variety of poses and in the midst of exuberant life. They are no longer depicted only frontally. Instead, three-quarter profiles are also seen. The Sanchi artist depicts a wide range of expressions effortlessly. The great stupa at Sanchi has an inscription on the eastern gateway which mentions that the exquisite carvings on the gateways are the work of ivory carvers of Odisha. Indeed, the stone is so finely carved here that it reflects the care and detail of work on delicate ivory. Another stupa at Sanchi contained the relics of the Buddha's close disciples, Modgiliana and Sariputra. The one Toran here was made under the rule of the Satvahanas in the 1st century AD. As in the earlier stupas, here is a vision of the world which sees the unending rhythm in all of creation. The vine of creative blossoming moves with a pulsating life through the Vedika. It brings to us life in many forms: flowers, fruit, animals, humans, and mythical creatures. In the meantime, great caves were being carved out of the hills of the Ghats in western India. Deep within the heart of rock, the seeker was provided a haven of peace, far from the noise and clamour of the material world.
Thank you very much, Sushant, for an excellent screening. And my many thanks to the India Habitat Center for these wonderful opportunities to share these beautiful chapters from the cultural history of India and of Asia with all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it is such a great pleasure to have all of you with us. Now, One of the very important fundamentals of Indian art, which you see being established in this period and will carry on for a long time to come, is the fact that the art, the entire monument, is patronized by the people. It is for the people, it is made by the people. The inscriptions and hundreds of inscriptions survive, which show us that it was tailors, fishermen, housewives, monks, nuns, so many others, who were each one of them patronizing a part of the monument. And this is something which we find across the board, across the ancient monuments of India. What a remarkable thing it is. It is not just a ruler who is providing this patronage, who is for whom this heritage is being created, but it is the people themselves. How marvelous this is. And we see the presentation of the forms of the world with which we live every day, the forms of the world which inhabit our sensibilities, our lives, and we see them on the outer walls of the temple, on the toranas, on the vedikas, and we recognize them from our own lives. And then we leave them behind and we move towards that which we must look upon while we meditate. Because in the meditation, we wish to put away the forms of the world. We wish to put away the noise and glamour of the material world. We wish to be able to focus on our journey of realization of that which is formless, that which is beyond the forms. Lakshmi, Saraswati, the Yakshis are established here. We see them representing the bounty of nature, the fruitfulness of nature, the wealth of nature, the beauty of nature, the aesthetics of nature. And of course, they are in the outer sections of the stupa railings or on the temple walls. And they are part of what? The most beautiful part of what we must leave behind to go towards the final realization. And what a marvelous challenge this is for Indian art. To use material forms, to use material itself out of which to carve and create images, and to use these images of material life to transport us beyond material life, to create images in all their beauty, and yet help us to be able to finally leave that beauty behind, to be able to leave that material world behind. What a remarkable challenge that Indian art takes upon itself, and through all the centuries to come hereafter. We see Indian art, this very philosophic art, constantly on this path, constantly trying to find ways and means of expressing this great challenge and helping to lead us beyond the material world to that which is so important. I would be very happy to answer some questions and would request Sujata to please read them out from the chat box. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll do that in a minute. Before that, before we disperse, I thought I'll just announce our next screening, which would be on Saturday. That would be January the 27th. And the name of the film is Heart of the Mountain. This is about the rock-cut caves of Western India, which are amongst the greatest heritage of mankind. So it would be lovely if you would mark it on your calendars, and we would give so much love to have you all with us on that day. Thank you. Dr. Chanchal Pal, thanks. It was beautiful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pal.
Manju Goel, can you someday go into the details of the reliefs and explain the stories and symbolism, like the expressions and body language of the figures?
Yes, Manju, it would be best if you would take a look at my book, The Art of India, in 2 volumes, and somewhat more detail would be found there. And it is actually such a vast canvas. There are these hundreds and hundreds of figures, and so much there. But the book will tell you more. Thank you.
Next comment is from Ong So Min, and he says, Dear Professor, thank you very much indeed for sharing invaluable knowledge about the origins of Buddhist art and architecture, which was later adopted by many countries, including my country, Myanmar.
Thank you very much for your appreciation. Yes, indeed, Myanmar has such a marvelous heritage of Buddhism. I've had the pleasure of giving talks there. I've had the pleasure of documenting early paintings and stupas and temples in Myanmar. And it's a beautiful heritage. The best part of it is that the living Buddhist heritage of Myanmar is remarkable, most admirable. It's so true and deep and simple. Thank you very much.
Sahib Saxena, thank you. I had visited Sanchi twice, but the beauty of the monument remained elusive till I saw your film. The carvings seem to be on ivory and not on stone.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Tarun, hi Benoy and Sujata. In the past, how do you think artists drew the line between commercial art and fine art?
Yes, it was a different world and a different attitude towards the world and towards work. As you noted, it is it is a social contract. The people, the common people themselves, are the patrons of art. It is the commonest of people, all the people who are the patrons of art. So they consider it their duty to pay for, to patronize the art. And there are guilds of artists who consider it their dharma, their duty, to preserve the knowledge passed on to them by their ancestors and through the guilds, and to create it afresh and to pass it on for the people to imbibe and for the future to carry on. So it's a very different world. So there is nothing called commercial art out here. Of course, it is fine art because it is art which is finely created for the best reasons of the soul. It is not for commercial purposes. It is a view of life which sees all that there is in life, one way or the other, to be divine. So life itself is considered divine. That's the strict division between that which is a mundane and that which is divine is not there. And the result is art of such remarkable beauty, art which stands out so many centuries later today as as so fresh and alive and truly exquisite. Thank you.
Dr. Naini, thank you, Professor and Sujata, for enlightening us with Stupa art.
My pleasure, our pleasure. Thank you.
King Sochiat, thank you so much, sir. This is the best of all art in India.
Yes, thank you so much, Cheng Sochiat. Truly, this is among the best art in India. And it is art created at a time when human beings are so full of grace. They're so much away from commercial needs, and it's a sense of harmony between society and the artist. And there is no desperation to create something for the purpose of ego, to stand out as something special. It is just a simple act of making something which is meant to be made, something which should be done, something which reflects the eternal truth in stories and in so many ways. Thank you.
Krishna Burli, imagination by finite to infinity, bestowed by nature with such a marvelous mind.
Thank you very much, Krishna.
Dipankar Mukhopadhyay, as always, great learning experience, so beautifully narrated.
Very kind of you, most kind of you to say this, and I remain always deeply grateful to you.
A.K. Tandon, thanks, it's wonderful.
Pleasure to have you with us, and thank you.
John Palka, Benoy your explanations are wonderful. Why do you suppose that the natural world is regarded both as divine and as illusory?
Yes, again, in this philosophic view, we do not try to sweep anything under the carpet. We look at it, in all ways, and it is illusory in as much as this is what we perceive because of the limitations of our senses and our sensibilities. It is not permanent, and therefore it is not finally true. It is something ephemeral. It is there for a moment as we perceive it, and it will be gone. So the search will be for that which is beyond and that which is final and true. At the same time, all that there is divine. We are divine. All that there is divine. And it is that realization that there is nothing else except the divine. So even these illusions are reflections of the divine. So therefore, we can either remain caught in the illusions and remain completely taken up with the illusions and remain frustrated when we don't get the things which we desire among the illusions. We can be angry about it, we can be very confused about it, or we can use the very inherent grace of these illusions to awaken the grace within us, to create a sense of peace. Therefore, while we live in this world of illusion, the purpose is to create a sense of peace, to lessen the turmoil of the illusory world, to create a grace which creates the stillness of mind, to be able to meditate, to be able to see beyond. And therefore, this journey is not an easy journey to break away from our attachments to the illusory world and head towards an understanding of that which is formless. Therefore, all that we can do to create peace and stillness helps us to see better. For it is in silence, it is in peace that we see better. Thank you.
I think that's about it. Maybe you'd like to share with them that we put up our events on YouTube.
Yes, there is a YouTube channel, Benoy Behl, and you may like to see some more films there. Thank you all very much. My thanks again to India Habitat Center, to Sujata Chatterji, to Shashank, and all of you for joining us today. Thank you.